Your Majesty, wake up. Caleb Blackwood opened his eyes to pain. Not the sharp pain of a wound. Something deeper, something tearing through the center of his chest. He reached instinctively for the presence that had lived inside him since his first shift. Orion. Nothing answered. Caleb sat upright. Orion. Silence. His beta stood frozen beside the bed. The guards found blood beneath your balcony. Caleb threw back the covers. Then he saw them. Enormous paw prints crossing the frost outside the open doors, leading toward the palace wall. His wolf's paw prints. Impossible. Orion was not supposed to exist separately from him. Caleb touched the blood on the balcony rail. A violent emptiness opened beneath his ribs. Where do the tracks go? His beta hesitated. East. Caleb looked up. East was the road they had forced Emma Hayes to take that morning. And suddenly the Alpha King understood that his wolf had not vanished. Orion had left him. 18 hours earlier, Emma stood beneath Blackwood Palace's eastern gate with everything she owned inside one worn brown bag. Cross the boundary before sunrise, Counselor Vance said. Emma looked at the pale line appearing beyond the mountains. I heard you the first time. Vance's mouth tightened. Rejected Omegas weren't supposed to answer counselors that way. Emma no longer cared. At 26, she had spent her entire life inside Blackwood territory. She had worked in the palace healing rooms since she was 17. She had stitched wounds after border fights, sat beside feverish children through the night, and never once broken pack law. None of it mattered now. 3 weeks earlier, fate had done the one thing Emma had never expected. It had named Alpha King Caleb Blackwood as her mate. And Caleb had rejected her. No explanation. No private conversation. Just a formal rejection before the Royal Council. After that, the whispers began. An Omega rejected by her own mate was considered unstable by the old council families. When they demanded her exile, Caleb could have stopped them with one sentence. He hadn't. Emma looked toward the palace steps. He was there. Tall, dark-haired, white-skinned, dressed in the same black coat he wore for royal judgments. Caleb stood perfectly still. Emma hated that part most. If he had looked cruel, leaving might have been easier. Instead, his jaw was tight enough to ache, and one hand remained clenched against his side. Something silver flickered briefly through his gray eyes. His wolf. Orion. Emma felt her own wolf reach toward him. She forced it back. No, Caleb heard her. His gaze sharpened. Emma wasn't sure whether she had spoken to herself, her wolf, or him. Maybe all three. Counselor Vance gestured toward the gate. Time. Emma picked up her bag. Caleb moved. Only half a step. But she saw it. So did Vance. Your Majesty? Caleb stopped. Emma waited. There were 1,000 things she hated herself for hoping he might say. Stay? I was wrong. Let me explain. Instead, Caleb's voice came low and controlled. You should leave before the weather turns. Emma stared at him. Something inside her finally went quiet. Not healed. Finished. She nodded once. Goodbye, Your Majesty. His face changed at the title. Emma turned before she could understand why. She crossed beneath the eastern gate. No guards followed. No friends came running. The boundary marker stood half a mile down the frozen road, an old black stone carved with the royal wolf crest. Emma stopped beside it. Behind her lay the only home she had ever known. Ahead waited miles of unfamiliar forest. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her bag. Then she stepped across. Pain struck Caleb at the exact same moment. He doubled over on the palace steps. Your Majesty. Vance reached for him. Caleb shoved his hand away. Inside his chest, Orion was roaring. Not growling. Not protesting. Roaring. Caleb gripped the stone railing until his knuckles whitened. Enough. The wolf slammed against him again. A single image flashed through their shared mind. Emma walking alone. Enough, Orion. Another image. Emma's face when Caleb had told her to leave before the weather changed. Then came something Caleb had never felt from his wolf before. Disgust. Caleb froze. Orion withdrew. Not completely. Just far enough that their lifelong connection suddenly felt cold. Caleb looked toward the eastern road. Emma was already gone. That evening, he attended council dinner. He signed 3 border orders. He listened while Vance spoke about stability returning to the pack. Caleb said nothing. At 11:30, he went to his chambers. Orion still refused to answer. You'll forgive me, Caleb murmured into the darkness. Silence. Caleb removed his shirt and lay down. For the first time since childhood, He fell asleep without feeling his wolf breathing somewhere inside him. At midnight, the pain began, and when Caleb opened his eyes again, the balcony doors were swinging in the winter wind, with blood on the railing and Orion's impossible tracks disappearing into the night. Caleb was barefoot when he reached the courtyard. Snow bit into his feet, but he barely felt it. Lanterns! Lucas shouted behind him. Wake the trackers. Seal every gate. No, the beta stopped. Caleb crouched beside the first paw print. Blood darkened its edge. Orion had been hurt crossing the balcony rail, yet the enormous wolf had kept running. Don't seal anything, Caleb said. Your Majesty, if Orion is physically separated from you, he'll feel trapped. Lucas stared at him. Royal wolves cannot physically separate from their alphas. Caleb touched the track. Apparently mine can. He reached inward again. Orion. Nothing. The absence was worse than pain. Caleb had known Orion before he knew how to rule. At 16, when his first shift had broken 3 bones and terrified everyone in the training hall, Orion had been there beneath the agony. Not beside him. Inside him. One mind with 2 instincts. One body with 2 voices. Until tonight. The royal trackers arrived minutes later. They followed the prince across the courtyard, through the eastern gardens, and toward the outer gate. Caleb walked behind them in boots and a hastily fastened black coat. Counselor Vance appeared beneath the archway. What happened? Caleb didn't stop. The royal wolf is missing. Vance actually laughed once. Then he saw Caleb's face. That's impossible. I'm aware. Vance hurried after him. If the council learns the king has lost access to his wolf, finish that sentence. Vance fell silent. They reached the eastern gate. The tracks passed directly beneath it. Caleb's chest tightened. He knew this road. Less than a day earlier, Emma had walked it alone. One tracker crouched. Your Majesty. Caleb approached. The man pointed toward the snow. A human boot print remained faintly visible beside the road. Small, worn at the heel. Emma's. Beside it lay Orion's fresh track. Caleb stared at both. He's following her, Lucas said quietly. Vance's face hardened. That Omega did something. Caleb turned so fast Vance stepped backward. She has a name. Silence. Caleb's voice dropped. Use it. Vance swallowed. Emma. The trackers continued. At the boundary stone, Orion's track stopped. For one terrible second, Caleb thought they had lost him. Then Lucas lifted his lantern. There. Across the border. Orion had jumped over the marker. Caleb approached the black stone. The royal crest carved into it caught the lantern light. This was where Emma had stopped that morning. He could still remember her turning slightly, as if some part of her had hoped he might call her back. He hadn't. Now his wolf had crossed the same line without hesitation. Your Majesty, one tracker said, we'll continue alone. Caleb stepped across. Vance caught his arm. You cannot leave royal territory tonight. Caleb looked at his hand. Vance released him. The northern packs will interpret this as instability. My wolf is bleeding somewhere outside my borders. And the Omega? Caleb's jaw tightened. What about her? If Orion has gone to her, we need to consider the possibility she caused the separation. Lucas looked disgusted. Caleb said nothing. Because somewhere beneath his anger, something worse was forming. A memory. Emma standing at the gate. Orion roaring inside him. Then that final emotion before the connection turned cold. Disgust. Not toward Emma. Toward Caleb. He started walking. They followed Orion's trail for nearly 3 miles. The forest thickened. Snow began falling harder. Then the tracks changed. Orion was limping. Blood appeared more frequently. Caleb's control cracked. Move faster. The trackers broke into a run. Suddenly, pain burned across Caleb's right shoulder. He stumbled. Lucas caught him. What happened? Caleb grabbed his shoulder. No wound. But he could feel one. Not his. Orion's. For the first time since midnight, something flickered across their broken connection. Cold. Pain. Exhaustion. And beneath all of it, Emma. Not her voice. Her scent. Wild lavender and cedar smoke. Caleb closed his eyes. Orion. This time, the wolf did not answer. But Caleb felt his direction. East. Farther into exile territory. The trackers found the next paw print beneath a pine tree. Beside it was a drop of blood. And next to that, a fresh human footprint. Emma's size. Caleb stared into the darkness ahead. His wolf had caught her trail. Lucas lowered his lantern. He isn't lost. No, Caleb finally understood what the tracks had been telling him from the palace onward. Orion hadn't wandered. He hadn't panicked. He had chosen a destination. Caleb looked down the road where he had allowed Emma Hayes to disappear that morning. His voice came rough. He's going to her. Behind him, Vance whispered. Then we need to reach him first. Caleb turned. Something in the counselor's expression lasted less than a second. Fear. Not fear for the missing royal wolf. Fear that Orion might actually find Emma. And Caleb saw it. Caleb kept his eyes on Vance. What are you afraid Orion will find? The counselor's expression settled almost instantly. I'm afraid the kingdom will discover its alpha king has lost control of his own wolf. That wasn't my question. Snow gathered on Vance's shoulders. Lucas stepped between the trackers and the two men. We're wasting time. Caleb let the silence stretch another second before turning away. Vance goes back. Your Majesty, that wasn't a request. Vance's jaw tightened. Caleb continued east with Lucas and 4 trackers. For another mile, Orion's trail remained easy to follow. The blood grew darker against the snow, and every few hundred yards Caleb felt another phantom stab through his right shoulder. Then the trail reached a frozen creek. The paw prints vanished. One tracker crouched near the bank. He crossed through the water. In this temperature? Lucas asked. To hide his scent. Caleb stared at the black current moving beneath broken ice. Orion wasn't simply searching. He knew someone might follow, and he didn't want them to. Split up, Caleb ordered. Lucas shook his head. No. If your connection is unstable, I'm not leaving you alone. Caleb might have argued. Then warmth touched his mind. Faint. Unexpected. A sensation of firelight. Then the smell of cedar smoke. Caleb froze. Orion. For half a heartbeat, he felt rough fabric beneath a massive body. A trembling hand. Emma's hand. Then the connection disappeared. Caleb turned east. He found her. Miles away, Emma Hayes had no idea the Alpha King was searching for the animal bleeding on her doorstep. She had spent most of the day walking. By late afternoon, snow had erased the road behind her, and exhaustion had forced her toward an abandoned hunting cabin near the creek. The roof leaked. The fireplace smoked. One window was cracked. It was still better than freezing outside. Emma had managed to start a fire when something struck the porch. Hard. She grabbed the iron poker. Another sound followed. A low whine. Emma approached the door carefully. If you're planning to murder me, I should warn you I've had a terrible day. Silence. She opened the door and forgot how to breathe. A black wolf lay in the snow. Not an ordinary wolf. He was enormous, his fur almost blue beneath the moonlight, his right shoulder soaked with blood. Emma knew those silver eyes. Orion. The royal wolf lifted his head. Emma stepped backward. That's impossible. Orion tried to stand. His front leg collapsed. Whatever questions she had disappeared. Oh no. She dropped the poker and knelt. Easy. Orion's lips pulled back. Emma stopped. Fine. You can bite me after you stop bleeding to death. His ears twitched. Slowly, she extended her hand. Orion stared at it. This was the wolf whose roar could silence an entire council chamber. The creature Blackwood children were taught never to approach without the king present. Emma should have been terrified. Instead, she saw blood melting the snow beneath him. Your choice, she whispered. But I'm trying to help. For several seconds, nothing moved. Then Orion lowered his massive head. Into her palm. Emma's breath caught. His fur was cold. She slid her other hand beneath his jaw. Okay, let's get you inside. Getting a wolf that size through the doorway took nearly 10 minutes. Emma used an old blanket to drag him closer to the fire. She cut away fur around the shoulder wound with scissors from her healing kit. No silver, she murmured. The wound looked like torn flesh from forcing his body through something sharp. A railing, perhaps. She cleaned it. Orion growled once when the antiseptic touched him. You're allowed to complain. His head settled against her knee. Emma paused. You followed me. Orion's eyes opened. Why? His tail moved once against the floor. Emma almost laughed. Then sadness returned. Your king threw me away. Orion's growl vibrated through the cabin. Emma stared at him. Apparently you have opinions. She wrapped the bandage firmly around his shoulder. When she finished, Orion pushed his muzzle beneath her hand again. Emma stroked the fur between his ears. Far away beside the frozen creek, Caleb suddenly dropped to one knee. Lucas grabbed his shoulder. Caleb. But Caleb wasn't hurt. For one impossible second, He could feel Emma's fingers moving through Orion's fur. Warm, gentle. The same woman he had allowed his council to drive into the wilderness was kneeling beside his wounded wolf, caring for him. Caleb closed his eyes, and through their fractured connection, one emotion finally came from Orion clearly enough that there could be no mistake. Peace. Peace. Of all the emotions Caleb expected from the wolf who had abandoned him, peace was the one that hurt most. He remained beside the frozen creek, eyes closed, holding on to the fading sensation of Emma's fingers in Orion's fur. Then another feeling crossed the fractured connection. Warmth. Orion was beside a fire. He's safe, Caleb whispered. Lucas exhaled. Then we keep moving. Caleb opened his eyes. No, Lucas frowned. If Orion crossed the creek to hide his scent, he doesn't want us following. He's injured. And he found Emma. Caleb looked east. That should not have reassured him. It did. The same woman his council had called weak was apparently the person Caleb trusted with his wounded wolf without hesitation. They made camp beneath the trees and waited for daylight. At the cabin, Emma woke sometime before dawn with her back against the wall and Orion's enormous head resting across her thigh. Her leg had gone numb. You weigh 1,000 pounds, she whispered. One silver eye opened. Don't look offended. Orion huffed and closed it again. Emma smiled despite herself. She checked his bandage. The bleeding had stopped. Good. When her fingers brushed the fur above his wound, Orion relaxed so completely that something inside Emma ached. Caleb's wolf trusted her. Caleb hadn't. She pulled her hand away. Orion immediately lifted his head. This is complicated enough. His ears tilted forward. You belong to him. A low growl. Emma blinked. Are you arguing with me? Another growl. Fine. You're independent. Orion placed one paw over the edge of her blanket. Emma stared at it. You're also terrible with boundaries. For the first time since crossing the Blackwood border, she laughed. Miles away, Caleb heard it. Not clearly. Just a soft echo traveling through Orion. He sat upright beside the dying campfire. Lucas opened his eyes. What? Nothing. But Caleb could still feel it. Emma's laughter. He couldn't remember the last time he had heard that sound. Certainly not after the rejection. He looked down at his hands. What did I do? Lucas was silent for a moment. You want the answer from your beta or your friend? Friend. You let fear make you cruel. Caleb's jaw tightened. I thought I was preventing something worse. You never told her that. No. And yesterday, when they banished her? Caleb stared into the fire. I let it happen. Lucas nodded. Then maybe Orion understands something you don't yet. By morning, the trackers found the cabin. Caleb ordered them to remain half a mile back. He approached with Lucas alone. Smoke curled from the chimney. Then Caleb felt Orion. Stronger now. The wolf knew he was coming. Orion. No answer. Caleb took another step. A growl rolled through the trees. Lucas stopped. That sounded like a warning. Caleb continued. The cabin door opened. Emma stepped onto the porch. Her light brown hair was loosely tied behind her head. She wore yesterday's gray coat over wrinkled clothes, and exhaustion shadowed her pale face. When she saw Caleb, every trace of softness disappeared. Of course. Caleb stopped 20 feet away. Emma, you banished me yesterday and visit me today? I came for Orion. The words landed badly. He knew it immediately. Emma gave a small, bitter laugh. Right. Of course you did. She stepped aside. Orion emerged behind her. Caleb's breath stopped. His wolf was limping, white bandages wrapped around his right shoulder. But that wasn't what froze him. Orion did not walk toward his king. He moved in front of Emma, placed his massive body between them, and bared his teeth. Orion. The wolf growled. Caleb felt the vibration inside his own chest. Come back. Orion didn't move. Emma looked between them. What happened to him? Caleb swallowed. I don't know. You're connected to him. I was. Emma's eyes sharpened. Was. Caleb took one careful step forward. Orion lunged just far enough to make him stop. Lucas's hand instinctively moved toward the knife at his belt. Don't, Caleb ordered. Lucas lowered it. Emma placed her palm against Orion's neck. The wolf immediately settled, and Caleb felt it. Her touch. Warmth traveled through Orion and struck him beneath the ribs. Emma noticed his expression. What? Caleb stared at her hand buried in his wolf's black fur. For years, royal scholars had warned him about a rare phenomenon no Blackwood king had experienced in generations. A royal wolf could reject its own alpha, but only after a betrayal of the bond it considered sacred. Caleb finally understood why Orion had crossed the border. His wolf had not chosen exile. Caleb had. Orion had simply chosen to follow the person who never should have been sent there. Emma's hand slowly left Orion's fur. What does that mean? Caleb looked at the wolf standing between them. It means he left me deliberately. Emma's expression hardened. I figured that out when he crossed half the wilderness to get here. No, you don't understand. Then explain it. Caleb hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Emma folded her arms. There it is. Again. What? You knowing something about my life and deciding whether I deserve to hear it. Caleb flinched. She was right. He looked at Lucas. Give us a minute. Lucas backed toward the trees. Caleb remained where Orion had forced him to stop. Royal wolves aren't ordinary second forms, he said. The Blackwood line carries them differently. Orion has had his own consciousness since my first shift, but we've always shared one physical existence. Emma glanced at Orion. So how is he standing here? There are records of separation. How many? 3. In how long? Almost 900 years. Emma stared at him. And all 3. Caleb swallowed. The wolf believed its alpha had committed an unforgivable betrayal. Silence filled the clearing. Emma looked down at Orion. His ears remained forward, his body still positioned protectively in front of her. Then she laughed once without humor. So your own wolf thinks banishing me was unforgivable. Caleb forced himself not to look away. Yes. Something painful crossed her face. At least one part of you noticed. The words landed cleanly. Caleb accepted them. Emma turned toward the cabin. Orion followed. Emma. She stopped. I need him back. Her shoulders stiffened. Caleb immediately hated how the words sounded. She looked over her shoulder. Then ask him. Caleb stared at Orion. Come back to me. Nothing. Orion. The wolf looked directly at him, then sat beside Emma. Caleb almost laughed at the cruelty of it. I'm still your alpha. Orion growled. Emma raised an eyebrow. That argument seems to be going well. Despite everything, Lucas made a suspicious coughing sound behind them. Caleb ignored him. Orion, the pack needs you. Still nothing. Then Emma crouched beside the wolf. You should go home. Orion turned his head toward her. Caleb is your other half. The wolf leaned against her shoulder. Emma nearly lost her balance. Caleb felt something twist inside him. Not jealousy. Shame. Orion trusted her because she had done nothing to earn distrust. Caleb had been given her trust by fate and destroyed it himself. Emma examined Orion's bandage. This needs changing. I can help. Her gaze lifted. You? I know how to dress a wound. You're a king. I've been injured before. For the first time, her mouth almost softened. Almost. She stepped aside. Caleb approached carefully. Orion allowed 3 steps. On the 4th, his lips curled back. Caleb stopped. Emma sighed. Apparently you're not invited. She led Orion inside. Caleb remained on the porch. A few minutes later, the strange connection opened again. He felt Emma's fingers unwrap the bandage. Orion's discomfort. The sting of antiseptic. Then Emma's palm against his chest. Easy, she murmured from inside. Caleb heard the word both through the cabin wall and through Orion. His knees nearly weakened. Every touch reached him. Not perfectly, but enough. When Emma scratched gently beneath Orion's jaw, warmth traveled through Caleb's body. When she pressed her forehead briefly against the wolf's head, Caleb felt a quietness he had not known in weeks. He closed his eyes. This was what he had rejected. Not weakness. Not danger. Her. Later, Emma stepped onto the porch. You can come in. He's asleep. Caleb entered. Orion lay beside the fire. Emma sat across from him. You said there were records. Yes. Did those wolves ever return? Caleb's expression changed. Emma noticed. What? They returned when the betrayal was repaired. And if it couldn't be? The separation became permanent. Emma absorbed that. Then her eyes narrowed. Why was the council so afraid of me? Caleb went still. She had found the question he had been avoiding. Before he could answer, Orion's head snapped up. A growl rolled through the cabin. Caleb turned toward the window. Movement passed between the trees. Lucas appeared outside seconds later, knife drawn. We're not alone. Caleb rose. How many? I counted 3. Emma stood. Trackers. Lucas shook his head. They're not ours. Orion moved instantly in front of Emma. Caleb watched his wolf bare his teeth toward the darkness. And suddenly Vance's fear from the night before made terrible sense. Someone else knew Orion had found Emma, and they did not want either of them coming home. Caleb moved before Emma could reach the window. "Stay behind me." Her expression hardened. Immediately. "Don't." He stopped. One word, and he understood exactly what he had done. Another command. Another decision made for her. Caleb lowered his voice. "3 unknown wolves are outside. I heard Lucas. What do you want to do?" Emma stared at him, surprised by the question. Orion remained pressed against her leg. "I want to know who they are." Caleb nodded. "Then we find out." Lucas entered and bolted the door. "They're circling instead of approaching." "Hunters?" Emma asked. "Possibly." Orion suddenly growled toward the back wall. A second later, glass shattered. A metal bolt punched through the window and buried itself in the floor. Orion lunged toward Emma. Caleb reached her at the same moment. They hit the ground as another bolt struck the wall. "Silver," Lucas said. Caleb smelled it too. Not enough to kill immediately. Enough to weaken a wolf. "Backroom," Emma said. Caleb looked at her. "There's another door behind the pantry. I noticed it last night." Lucas nodded. "Good." Emma grabbed her bag. Orion limped after her. Caleb started to follow. Then pain ripped across his injured shoulder, the echo of Orion's wound intensifying as the wolf moved. He stumbled. Emma caught his arm. Their eyes met. For 1 second, neither moved. "You feel his injury?" "Yes." "Everything." "Not everything." Another bolt shattered wood behind them. Emma pulled him toward the pantry. "Explain later." They escaped through the rear door into deep snow. Lucas disappeared between the trees to draw the attackers west. Caleb followed Emma and Orion east until they reached a narrow ravine hidden beneath pines. Emma crouched beside Orion. His breathing had grown heavier. His wound reopened. Caleb knelt opposite her. This time Orion didn't growl. Emma pressed clean cloth against the bandage. Caleb felt the pressure through the fractured connection. Then her fingers brushed Orion's chest. Warmth spread beneath Caleb's own ribs. He inhaled sharply. Emma noticed. "That was me." Caleb nodded. Her hand went still. "So when I touch him, I feel an echo." Emma slowly withdrew her fingers. The loss of warmth was immediate. Caleb hated himself for noticing. She looked at him across. "Orion's body. Tell me why the council wanted me gone." Snow drifted between them. Caleb could have lied. He had already lost too much doing that. "My grandfather kept records about rare Omega bloodlines," he said. "Yours was one of them." Emma's face changed. "My family. Your mother's line. What about it?" Caleb looked at Orion. "Some Omegas can stabilize a royal wolf when the alpha begins losing control." Emma frowned. "That sounds useful, not dangerous." "It is." "Then why exile me?" Caleb's silence stretched. Emma understood before he spoke. "Because of this." She gestured toward Orion. "Yes." "The council knew he might choose me. They believed a royal wolf bonded strongly enough to an Omega could begin placing her safety above the throne." Emma stared at him. "And you believed them?" Caleb swallowed. "Yes." Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "So when you rejected me, it wasn't because you thought I was weak. No, you thought I might have too much influence over you." "Over Orion." She gave a bitter laugh. "That distinction is supposed to help?" "No." Orion lifted his head and looked at Caleb. The disappointment in those silver eyes was almost unbearable. Emma whispered, "And the exile?" Caleb forced himself to answer. "Vance told me separation would weaken whatever connection was forming between you and Orion. You let them throw me out because you were afraid your wolf might care about me more than your crown." Caleb looked directly at her. "Yes." No excuse. No false protection. Just the ugliest truth he had. Emma wiped quickly beneath one eye. "At least now I know." A branch snapped above the ravine. Caleb rose. Orion struggled upright beside Emma. 3 figures appeared along the ridge. One raised a silver crossbow. "Found them." Caleb stepped in front of Emma. The hunter smiled. "Move, Your Majesty. Our orders concern only the Omega." Caleb's face went cold. "Whose orders?" The hunter aimed directly at Emma. Caleb saw the crest burned into the leather around the man's wrist. A wolf beneath a crown of thorns. Counselor Vance's private guard. And suddenly the exile was no longer the worst thing the council had planned for Emma Hayes. "Move," the hunter repeated. Caleb didn't. The crossbow remained aimed past his shoulder at Emma. "You're pointing a silver weapon at your king," Caleb said. "Not at you." That distinction disappears if you pull the trigger. The hunter's finger tightened. Orion growled behind Caleb. The sound was weak from blood loss, but every wolf on the ridge heard what it was. Royal. Ancient. Furious. The hunter fired. Caleb moved sideways. The bolt tore through his coat and grazed his upper arm before striking the tree behind him. Caleb! Emma shouted. Lucas crashed into the second hunter from behind. The ravine erupted. Caleb caught the first man by the wrist before he could reload and drove him into the snow. The third shifted. Bones cracked. A gray wolf launched down the ridge directly toward Emma. Orion tried to intercept him. His injured leg buckled. Emma grabbed a fallen branch and swung. It struck the attacking wolf across the muzzle, knocking him sideways just long enough for Orion to recover. Caleb saw Orion lunge. Then something inside him opened. For one heartbeat, man and wolf connected. Caleb felt Orion's rage. Orion felt his. The royal wolf struck the attacker and pinned him against the snow. Alive! Caleb shouted. Orion's jaws stopped inches from the wolf's throat. The attacker shifted back, gasping. Minutes later, all three men were restrained. Lucas tore the leather guard from one hunter's wrist. Vance's crest stared back at them. Emma stood beside Orion, breathing hard. Caleb's arm bled through his torn sleeve. She noticed. You're hurt. It's nothing. That's what difficult patients always say. Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. Emma opened her healing bag, then stopped. You can handle it yourself. He understood. She had cared for him once, long before fate revealed their bond. She had given kindness freely. He had no right to expect it now. Yes. Caleb wrapped his own arm. Lucas dragged the conscious hunter closer. Why does Vance want Emma dead? The man spat blood into the snow. Caleb crouched. You attacked a royal alpha, his wolf, and his mate. Emma stiffened at the last word. Caleb corrected himself immediately. Emma Hayes. Her. Eyes flicked toward him. The hunter laughed. You still don't understand. Explain it. Her blood doesn't just stabilize royal wolves. Caleb went still. What does it do? The hunter looked at Orion. It lets them choose. Silence. Emma frowned. Choose what? The crown or the bond? Caleb's stomach dropped. The hunter smiled through split lips. Vance spent 30 years making sure Blackwood wolves served kings before anyone else. Then she appeared. Emma's face drained. He wanted me exiled because Orion might choose me? He wanted you gone because if Orion chose you publicly, every pack would know the throne doesn't control the royal wolf. Caleb looked at Orion. The wolf stood beside Emma. Not behind Caleb. Not awaiting orders. Beside her. The truth settled with brutal clarity. The council had feared Emma because her existence proved loyalty could not be commanded. But Caleb had feared something too. Not her death. Not danger. Losing control. Emma looked at him. You knew part of this. Yes. How much? That your bloodline could strengthen your connection to Orion. That he might prioritize you over royal commands. And that frightened you enough to reject me. Caleb's throat tightened. Yes. Then you let them exile me. Yes. Her eyes shone. Caleb wanted to cross the space between them. He stayed where he was. I could tell you I was raised to believe a king who cannot control his wolf cannot control his kingdom. Emma said nothing. I could tell you Vance spent years teaching me that love was a weakness people could use. Still nothing. But none of that changes what I did. Caleb met her gaze. I chose fear. Emma's voice was quiet. And I paid for it. Yes. That answer hurt them both. Orion walked to Caleb. For the first time since leaving the palace, the wolf came willingly within reach. Caleb's breath caught. Orion sniffed the blood on his arm. Caleb slowly raised a hand. The wolf allowed his fingers to touch his head. Warmth flooded the fractured connection. Then Orion stepped away. Back to Emma. Not forgiveness. Acknowledgement. Caleb understood the difference. Lucas rose suddenly. Caleb. He was holding a folded order taken from the hunter's coat. Caleb opened it. Emma watched his face harden. What? He handed her the paper. At the bottom sat Counselor Vance's seal. Above it were two instructions. Eliminate Emma Hayes. Recover the royal wolf by force. Emma looked toward the prisoners. If they fail, one hunter laughed. They weren't the only team. Caleb turned toward the distant cabin. Smoke was rising beyond the trees. Too much smoke. Black smoke. Then came an explosion. The ground beneath them shook. Emma's face went white. Caleb looked toward the burning horizon. Vance was no longer trying to preserve the throne. He was trying to erase every living piece of evidence that could take it from him. Emma was running before the echo of the explosion died. My bag is in there. Caleb caught up beside her. Emma, the cabin could collapse. My mother's letters are in that bag. He understood immediately. Not clothes. Not money. The last pieces of a family she had already lost. Lucas, Caleb called. I'll get them. No, Emma stopped so sharply Caleb nearly passed her. I'm going. Caleb's instinct screamed to order her back. He swallowed it. Then I'm going with you. They reached the clearing as flames climbed the cabin's eastern wall. 2 wolves waited near the porch. Not Vance's prisoners. Another team. Orion stepped ahead of Emma. His injured shoulder trembled. Orion, no, Caleb said. The wolf ignored him. One attacker shifted and charged. Caleb had no wolf to call. For the first time since he was 16, the Alpha King met a shifted wolf in a human body. He dodged the first bite, caught the animal behind the neck, and drove his knee into its ribs. The second wolf went for Emma. Orion intercepted him. Pain exploded through Caleb's shoulder as Orion's wound tore open again. He nearly fell. Then Emma shouted, Caleb! A knife spun through the air. He caught it by the handle. Emma had thrown it. Caleb drove the blade into the ground directly before the attacking wolf's paw, forcing the animal sideways without killing him. Orion slammed into the wolf. The attacker fled. The first followed. Let them go, Emma said. Caleb looked at her. They'll lead us back to Vance. She was right. Lucas emerged from the burning cabin carrying Emma's brown bag beneath his coat. Got it. Emma took it with shaking hands. Thank you. Behind them, the roof collapsed. She stared at the flames. The first place she had found after exile was gone. Caleb looked at the burning cabin and felt something inside him settle into absolute clarity. Vance had tried to kill Emma because Caleb's wolf had chosen to protect her. And Caleb had given Vance that opportunity when he let the council drive her beyond royal protection. Never again. They returned to Blackwood territory before sunset. At the eastern gate, 12 council guards blocked the road. Vance stood behind them. His expression changed when he saw Emma alive. Your Majesty. Caleb kept walking. You seem disappointed. Vance's eyes flicked toward Orion. The royal wolf must be secured immediately. Orion growled. No, Caleb said. Vance blinked. No. You ordered Emma Hayes killed. A murmur moved through the guards. Vance recovered quickly. Those are serious accusations based on the word of criminals. Lucas threw the recovered orders into the snow at his feet. Your seal. Vance didn't look down. The Omega has compromised the king. There it was. Not Emma. The Omega. As though stripping away her name could make what followed easier. Vance turned toward the guards. Under royal continuity law, an alpha separated from his wolf is unfit to rule until the bond is restored. Caleb heard weapons shift. Emma looked at him. This was always about the throne. Yes, Caleb said. Vance smiled. Return the wolf, surrender the Omega, and perhaps the council can contain this embarrassment. Caleb stared at the man who had advised his father, the man who had taught him that control was strength. Then Caleb removed the black signet ring from his finger. Vance's smile widened. Emma whispered, Caleb. He placed the ring in her palm. If keeping my throne requires giving them you, I don't want it. Silence. Vance's face changed. You would sacrifice the crown for an Omega? Caleb looked at Emma. No. Then he looked back at Vance. I'm refusing to sacrifice her for it. Orion stepped forward. For the first time, he moved too. Caleb sighed. The connection struck like lightning. Caleb gasped. Orion's strength flooded through him. Not complete, but enough. The royal wolf lifted his head. His roar rolled across the eastern gate. Every council guard froze. Then one lowered his weapon. Another followed. Then another. Vance backed away. No, Caleb felt Orion beside him. Not controlled. Not possessed. Choosing. Lucas drew his sword. Counselor Vance, by order of the Alpha King, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy against the crown, and treason. Vance turned to run. Emma stepped directly into his path. He stopped. She didn't touch him. She didn't need to. You should have stayed gone, Vance hissed. Emma held his gaze. You should have made sure I wanted to. The guard seized him. Later, beneath the palace lights, the evidence spread quickly through the pack. The assassination orders. The hunters. The false claims about Emma's bloodline. The conspiracy to control the royal wolf. By midnight, Vance's allies were in custody. Caleb stood alone in the courtyard when Orion approached. The wolf pressed his head against Caleb's chest. The broken connection opened. Fully, Caleb dropped to his knees and buried both hands in Orion's fur. "I'm sorry." Orion remained still. Then the wolf pulled away. Caleb looked up. Orion walked across the courtyard, straight to Emma. He sat beside her. Caleb almost laughed. His wolf had returned. But Orion had apparently decided there was one lesson his king still needed to learn. Getting the wolf back did not mean getting Emma back too. 3 days later, Emma stood at the eastern boundary with the same brown bag in her hand. The Blackstone marker had not changed. She had. Behind her, Blackwood territory stretched toward the mountains. Vance was imprisoned beneath the palace awaiting trial. His loyalists had been removed from the council, and every order concerning Emma's exile had been formally erased. Caleb had done all of it. He had also done something harder. He had left her alone. No summons. No royal guards outside her temporary room. No announcement that the Alpha King had reclaimed his rejected mate. When Emma told him she needed time, he had simply said, "Take it." So she had. Now Orion sat beside the boundary stone, watching her. "You know you're supposed to be with him." The black wolf blinked. Emma sighed. "We've discussed this." Orion remained seated. "You are incredibly stubborn." His tail struck the snow once. Emma almost smiled. Footsteps sounded behind her. She knew them before she turned. Caleb approached alone. No crown. No royal coat. Just dark jeans, boots, and a charcoal sweater beneath a winter jacket. He stopped several feet away. "You're leaving?" Emma looked toward the road beyond the boundary. "I haven't decided." Caleb nodded. He didn't ask her to stay. That mattered. Emma looked down at Orion. "Your wolf seems to have opinions." "He usually does." "Can you feel him again?" "Completely. And he still sits beside me." Caleb's mouth curved faintly. "He came back to me." "I didn't say he became obedient." Emma looked at him. There had been a time when that sentence would have frightened him. Now there was almost pride in it. "The council cleared my name," she said. "They should never have stained it. You revoked my exile. It was never just. You restored my position in the healing rooms. It's yours if you want it." Emma tightened her grip on the bag. "And if I don't, then you don't." Simple. No command hidden inside kindness. She studied his face. "What happens to us?" Pain flickered through Caleb's eyes, but he didn't move closer. "That depends on what you want." "What do you want?" He exhaled slowly. "You." The answer came without hesitation. "But wanting you doesn't give me the right to have you." Emma's throat tightened. Caleb continued. "I rejected you because I was afraid Orion might choose you over the crown. Then I let them exile you because I was more afraid of losing control than I was of losing you." He looked toward the road. "I got exactly what I chose." Emma said nothing. "I lost Orion anyway." His gaze returned to her. "And I nearly lost you. You hurt me. I know. You made me believe being rejected meant there was something wrong with me." Caleb's face tightened. "There wasn't. I know that now." Those 4 words changed something between them. Emma stepped toward the boundary stone. Caleb remained still. "The first time I crossed this line, nobody asked what I wanted. I remember. I kept waiting for you to stop me." His eyes closed briefly. "I know. You didn't." "No," Emma swallowed. "And now?" Caleb looked directly at her. "Now I won't stop you if you leave." Her wolf stirred quietly inside her. Not demanding. Listening. Caleb's voice softened. "But if you're asking whether I want you to come back, Emma, yes. More than I know how to say." Orion stood. Caleb glanced at him, then back at Emma. "But not as my possession. Not because fate named you my mate. Not because Orion chose you." He paused. "Come back only if there's something here you would choose for yourself." Emma stared at the man who once believed kings proved their strength by controlling everything they could lose. "What if I can't forgive you yet?" "Then don't." "What if it takes months?" "I'll wait." "What if I never become your queen?" Caleb gave a small nod. "Then I'll have to survive the terrible tragedy of respecting your decision." A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Caleb smiled. Not the Alpha King. Just Caleb. Emma looked across the boundary. She could leave. For the first time, that road belonged to her. Then she looked back toward Blackwood. The healing rooms. The children she had cared for. The mountain she loved. A life that had belonged to her long before Caleb decided whether she deserved it. Emma placed her bag on the snow. "I'm not coming back to you." Caleb's smile disappeared, but he nodded. "I understand. I'm coming back for me." Something shifted in his expression. Hope, carefully restrained. And you? Emma continued. You can start with coffee. Caleb blinked. Coffee. Tomorrow. 10 o'clock. His wolf stirred so strongly that silver flashed through his eyes. Orion gave an approving huff. Emma pointed at the wolf. And he's coming. Caleb looked offended. I thought this was my chance. It is. With my wolf supervising? Consider it a consequence. Caleb laughed. A real one. Emma picked up her bag and stepped across the boundary. No guards welcomed her. No council announced her return. No king ordered. The gates opened. She simply walked home because she had chosen to. Orion followed at her side. Caleb walked several steps behind them. He could have closed the distance. He didn't. Not until Emma looked over her shoulder and held out her hand. Caleb stopped. Then he crossed the space between them. His fingers settled carefully into hers. Orion's warmth moved through their restored connection. But Caleb finally understood that his wolf had never abandoned him to punish him. Orion had gone where loyalty demanded. To the woman, their king had failed. And by following the rejected Omega into exile, the Alpha King's wolf had taught the most powerful man in the kingdom what strength had never meant. Holding tighter. It meant knowing when to open your hand, and being worthy if someone chose to take it again.